to Mukunde, he has managed to get 44,427,000 votes. Sorry, 44,427, 0.49%. And then Kabuleta Kiza Joseph, 39,802 votes, representing 0.44%. And Katumba John, 33,692, representing 0.36%. And lastly, Mwesi Fred, who has managed to get 21,841, representing 0.24%. The Electoral Commission boss has told us that the next reading is at 11:30. Okay. Most probably that will be the last, final reading, the final announcement of provisional results, and then later on he will declare the president-elect.
Because they had collected from polling stations to the tune of 30 plus. Now we have just about 400, and then we're good to go. Okay, looking at the rejected votes, we have 336,447 votes that have been rejected from the tally center. And then we also get to look at votes, 9,010,865 votes that have been considered. And then we also look at the tally centers that they have made these considerations from. That is 30,049 polling stations that they have collected these votes from. So far, ballots are 9,347,312 ballots that have been considered to compute to the results that we are seeing or receiving from the Electoral Commission. Now, we also get to look at the influence of those results for directly elected MPs, and then we also get to look at a graph there as it's coming through. This is the Election Hub, and we are continuing to give you full coverage of what is taking place both at the tally center and also when it comes to the MPs results that are coming out. Mr. My Vote, My Choice. People have voted, they've made their choice.
Well, of course, as we do get and approach the evening of this presidential and probably members of parliament. Well, members of parliament are in the night times because most of them we are going to sleep. But in the evening, in the afternoon of these presidential elections, we as you see the trends, it is basically taking shape. Predictions would be given in these times, or at this particular time, you could predict who may take, but that is left in the Electoral Commission. Happily, at least up till today, we don't have any insecurity issues so far that we know of. At least we have been having a conversation in Atoli Muleterwa. We pray that it stays calm for that matter. But the beauty of the same is that we will, and we have definitely got through a process that many people were scared. You saw how we were in the field, you saw many people were lining at the bus stations. You know, people were, I don't know how safe our village is. Probably now I think we should start thinking. You youth who want to buy land in Kampala, yet when it's time that is hot, when it's hot time, you want to run back to the village. So I think we should start rethinking. I think you should start thinking of buying land.
You say us, not you.
Us, the Wazeis,
okay, yes.
are comfortable in the villages. But of course, Priscilla, just briefly, quickly, just looking at this map, it does also paint the picture once again of the yellow and red. I wonder where the black is, but probably somewhere in the Independence. We
shouldn't be surprised with Karangara going red.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah. It's definitely
the incident that happened shortly before elections were rounded up when we had Robert Chagulanyi arrested. I think it did influence how Karangara looks red today.
And basically, that's Buganda. Not only that's the central, and that's Buganda. You're looking at Masaka, Kampala, Wachiso, Bukoto, Busiro, all those areas where you've had most of these guys take toll and center stage in terms of representation. And it's not surprising, as you said, Priscilla, and maybe Kawa, since for you always in the, with these guys in the field, you do notice that this shade of red is particular. Because you cannot find any red, even a drop in the west there, extreme west. You go to the likes of Kisoro, the Chigezi area. Not
you
even
actually only see it in the areas of Mbale, is where you have a little bit of a drop of red. Yes,
yes, it's showing that. But though where there is yellow, actually no performed better than others. in some areas.
Yeah, in terms of just performance.
So literally, if you to follow in terms of performance, still NUP is performing better than other parties. And,
also, can we look at the blue that we're seeing there?
That is that's Amriat's territory, where he is from. But for this red, when you look at where Kyagulanyi has managed to get a lot of votes, he actually did not campaign in these specific areas. Some of them.
Not much. For example, he didn't go to, and these are some of the 13.
Exactly, among the 13. Yeah,
the
true.
massacre,
exactly. So you find that maybe people were voting someone whom they are identifying with. So imagine if Kyagulanyi had, you know, he went so much in the north.
The north
part. He was there so much, but he has not managed in this sense.
It's been referred to as his kingmaker for presidential.
But this is a very good strategic place for him. Now he knows this is where I'm strong, and he will channel his efforts.
I need to make investments.
Exactly, elsewhere.
All right. But also, let's ask ourselves, could it be the fact that he has the popular vote in central Uganda that automatically it has turned red?
Definitely. Actually, when if you did, one of the headlines you read from the papers, if you remember, the Buganda has spoken against the so-called historical revolutions and all those things. It sends a big message. And if you want to bring out a bitter truth, you would want to relate that to the previous Democratic Party, remember, which was marred by Uganda and the Catholic Church. So we may be heading to a place where we see a NUP that is by far characterized by Uganda and Busoga. Because we have seen at least their existence in those areas quite critical. And
all right, this also brings me to a question. We have been having Forum for Democratic Change as the predominantly opposition party, or the face of opposition. Now this is red that shows that FDC is either being thrown out. If they are not careful, they may actually cease to exist in the next 5 years if they're not strategic, or they don't go back to the drawing board.
Remember when we started, Felix said DP voted DP, FDC voted FDC. When you look at Amriat being at 3.29%, if it is that those who identify with FDC were voting Amriat, we would have expected a 30% plus what message they had.
Even from the West.
What message they had from the previous election. So you'd have expected
actually even the
30 plus on top of what message they had.
So if it is true, they were voting for the parties, we should have expected a big.
Because the baseline still remains the same, the ideology still remains the same.
That is true. Now, Kyagulanyi has this populistic party that is identifying with people. And believe you me, right now, with the provisional results we are having, we should call it now the strongest opposition wing, given the fact that they really do have the numbers now compared to other parties, and that should worry many people. I'm also anticipating many leaders are going to switch from their political parties when we do get over this to join the National Unity Platform. Because they will,
that's a strategy.
It's a kingmaker.
Yeah, because we have those that have been independent, as you said it earlier. They are independent, then they get in there, they sign, you know,
you will see
MOUs.
You will see the elders who would want to come in and advise the National Unity Platform. So by all that, you know, because they believe now these are people who have come in, they do not have a strategic eye on where they are going, they really need to be helped and so forth. So expect more members. Expect more members to identify with the National Unity Platform, because if you're talking about transition right now, this is an eye-opener. This election, realistically, is the definition of transition. And believe you me, if Kyagulanyi is to come back in 2026, when Museveni is not on the ballot, Kyagulanyi can take presidency.
Final question. Popularity versus realism and ideology. If Kyagulanyi was not for NUP, would it be performing like this? Because we have seen the reflection of it in FDC.
I want to say that the reverse is true. If NUP was not with Kyagulanyi, would it be performing like this? Kyagulanyi is bigger than NUP. Even if Kyagulanyi woke up tomorrow, I went to PPP. And I'm serious. I'm telling you, even if Kyagulanyi woke up tomorrow and said, no, now I am going to FDC, he carries his might, pomp, and glitter with him. Kyagulanyi is NUP, and NUP is Kyagulanyi. So if you disseminate the two, there's no NUP, but Kyagulanyi is there.
So never shall we see a time in Ugandan politics where you can separate the party from the character or the face of the party.
It's something we discussed yesterday, just briefly, that one, look at how parties are supported. They're simply individual support. There is no vote. Parties are struggling. We have over 20 parties. How many of them are even able to put up? I gave you a simple calculation. If a party was supposed to put in place agents in all polling stations in this country, they would need about 2 billion shillings. Just in even half, you have over 3,000, is it 30,000? Polling stations. That would mean you need probably about another 30,000, or if there are two,
34,000.
about 60,000, for example. How many political parties, and inclusive even of NRM, are able to have presence there, well supported, apart from NRM? NUP couldn't. And no wonder you see most of these areas where NUP has been won, it didn't even have agents. It didn't have the time to recruit agents because of the police here and there and what. It didn't have time to meet with people there. Some places it never even went there because of the, the challenges that came with the elections, arrests and what and what. But also something I must acknowledge and add my voice to, I must agree that there has been one person in this race, and he must thank, I don't know who, probably himself, that the only person who has been able to talk to people has been Kyagulanyi, amidst all. Even he has beaten Museveni in how he has been able to talk to people. He has had rallies, he has had crowds, His Excellency has always been on TV and what, and you get my point. So I feel that he has had a better leverage, even in terms of coverage, social media, police, and what. All these things build up politicians. You can imagine in Uganda beating up a politician is built up. No wonder one politician will tell you, me, I'm having a barefoot, because they believe that walking barefooted is
someone called it, village boy tendencies. Anyway, well, the election hub continues. We're giving you live coverage up until we are getting the final results and declaration from the Electoral Commission. Today is the D-Day. Uganda decides.
Well, of course, Priscilla, there we're supposed to...
Felix and Ivan, there is so much information you are giving there. It is the Electoral Hub, and our role is to ensure that we give you 24/7 coverage of what is happening, results as they come in, right from the National Tari Center. And to some of the MPs who have not yet been declared, as we get results, we'll be communicating. Just a few hours remaining for Ugandans to know who will be in State House from the 11. But amidst that, in studios we have an independent election observer. Many a times when elections are going on, we've seen election observers in various countries come in, those that are there, and one wonders, what is their role? Given Uganda's current situation, what do we hear from the election observers? And with me in studios is, Cyprian Kaheru, who is with us in studios today, with whom we are going to be looking at this election from the perspective of the observers. You're most welcome to our studios.
Thank you very much.
Well, you've been a man who has moved almost the entire country, following the trail, the campaign trail, getting information right from registration as an independent observer. But before we go into that, one would like to know, Kaheru, what is the role of observers in an election, and is there any impact?
Well, the role of observers is threefold. First, as the name suggests, you observe, you see with your eyes what exactly is going on in an election. You scrutinize each and every election activity to see the good practices, to see the challenges, and then ultimately suggest recommendations of what needs to change, what needs to be kept the same, and what needs to generally improve in the electoral process. The other role of the observer is to actually analyze every activity of the electoral process. So beyond what we see, there is also the other angle of analysis, just to make sure that you are able to tell the story behind what people look at in an election. So that helps the broader public understand what the nuances of an election were. So that is basically the role of the observer. So in an election such as this one, to simplify it, the observer has their eyes on, they have their ears open to hear what is being said in the election, but they have their hands off. In other words, they can't actively intervene in the electoral process. So that's the role of the observer.
Okay, well said. When we look at after giving us the role of the observer, then what is the impact in an election process? Many times we have these observers have come in, observers are present. What is your impact in a general election as observers?
Well, when you have an election where observers are, then it adds to the confidence of the voters in that election. They know that beyond themselves, there are an extra layer of people who are watching what is going on in an election and who will ultimately give a verdict about that particular election, on whether it went well or it did not. So the voters come, vote, and go. The observers follow the nitty-gritty of every election element up until the end. Value addition, they make recommendations. Value addition, those recommendations, if you find very responsive stakeholders, such as the Electoral Commission, such as the Uganda Police, such as, for instance, civil society, such as, I mean, call it the Uganda Human Rights Commission, the stakeholders that are key in electoral processes. When you find responsive institutions, they respond positively to the recommendations that you make. So you improve the electoral process. You make it more transparent because of the recommendations that you have made. You make the electoral process generally credible as you go along. The whole intent of election observation is to offer recommendations that improve the election subsequently. And as you might know very well, in Uganda, after each and every election, observers have made recommendations. Some of those recommendations have been integrated into our election system. They have made our elections better in some respects. Well, on the flip side, some of the recommendations that have been made by observers have actually not been taken into account. And that's why occasionally you see the challenges that afflict our elections.
How are observers selected or invited to cover?
An observer applies to the Electoral Commission for accreditation.
Okay.
And after they have applied, the Electoral Commission reserves the right to accredit or not to accredit, depending on the criteria they have set. Of course, the Electoral Commission, as a body mandated to accredit election observers, they want observer individuals or institutions that have a track record of observing elections. They want institutions or individuals that have the expertise, that have the experience, that are objective, that are independent in the way they make their assessments. So that is a criteria that is set by the election management body prior to the accreditation of observers.
2021 general election, if an estimate of how many observers could we be having this time around to observe this election?
I think we have about 2,000 both local and international election observers. We have about 486 international election observers contributed by institutions such as the African Union, such as the European Union, IGAD, East African Community, East African Standby Force. We have, I think, there's the Women's Situation Room and many others. We also have embassies that are independently actually observing this election. The Japan Embassy in Uganda, the United Kingdom High Commission in Uganda are also part of the players from the international arena observing this particular election. For the domestic election observers, we have civil society organizations that were accredited to observe the elections. However, I would want to add a quick note that when you look at many of the domestic civil society organizations that were accredited, the formally known active election observer groups that were active in the Ugandan elections previously didn't receive accreditation or received the accreditation quite late in the election calendar. So
we see the likes of the New You.
Yes. The Citizens Coalition for Electoral Democracy in Uganda, the National Election Watch. So those we don't see them as active players this time. Why? Because they did not procure the accreditation. And I want to add a note that the more election observers that we have, keeping their eyes on the electoral process, the more confidence the electorate will have in that election. But also, secondly, and equally important, the more eyes we have on the election process, the more perspectives we will get at the end of the day in respect to how to improve the election in subsequent times.
Crispin, what have been your observations so far on the 2021 general election, this election?
Well, let me begin with the downside observations. I think we had a chaotic campaign period. Violent. People lost their lives. And looks like we didn't pay a lot of attention to the circumstances under which we were having this election. You very well know that this election is unique in many respects. It's been a very difficult election considering the fact that it's running during a COVID-19 pandemic, where people, politicians, could not do the campaign rallies in the way they're used to.
Okay.
There were limitations on the numbers of people that were supposed to attend campaign meetings. They were capped at 200 people per meeting. Formerly, politicians have been used to having big rallies.
Giving it a full blast.
Exactly. You find a rally of about 10,000 people. That did not happen this time. We are having elections in a context where people could not freely move across the country. You remember there was a time when the country was in a total lockdown. People couldn't move. On the Electoral Commission roadmap, that was the time when people were supposed to be doing political consultations about their aspirations to offer themselves as candidates. So there was that limitation. There's also been limitations around access to media. You will remember there's a time when not much activity was happening, when COVID had just come into play. But you had a national task force that was comprised of government, technical and political people. You had district task forces for the prevention of COVID that incorporated politicians, especially the incumbent politicians. Now, the people who had membership to these task forces had the flexibility to move around the country to talk about COVID, but you know, they would not only talk about COVID, they would also talk about their candidature in the coming few months, both at the national level and at the district level. And yet, on the other side, those who were not the incumbents who also had aspirations to run for these elective offices were at home in a lockdown in the house. So they couldn't do anything.
Okay.
So all the media share the interaction with the people during that difficult time when the entire country was locked down was only a privilege of those who are incumbents. So we saw that creating an unlevel playing field. But besides that, you have followed the issues around accessing media, where some of the candidates have either been blocked from attending radio TV shows or have actually gone to speak on a radio. They speak on a radio for 30 minutes, not knowing that it is actually closed down. The airwaves are not going out. So those are some of the challenges that have afflicted this period before we go to the election. Turning
to the goods.
To the, let's look at the election day.
Okay.
Now that is the background. If you look at the election day, I think surprisingly it was very peaceful. It was well run.
As we wind up, Crispin.
It was well run. And you could tell that many of the anxieties that people had towards the election day, that it would be full of tension, there would be a lot of violence, there would be, you know, disorganization, all that didn't turn out the way many people anticipated. It was peaceful, it was calm. The machines, the biometric voter verification machines, worked in a majority of the polling stations that at least we observed. The Electoral Commission integrated an element of voter education at polling stations around the use of biometric machines and how people should conduct themselves in the COVID time at the polling station, which was, I think, a fantastic intervention. The Electoral Commission right now is providing very regular updates on the election results, which also gives confidence to the people who are listening in. So I think for me, right now, this election day and post-election day activities have been very well managed, and we await to receive the final results from the Electoral Commission. Then, in the event that there are any issues, people should be able to channel them to the rightful formal ways for redress.
Well, I want to thank you so much, Crispin Kaheru, who is an independent election observer, for having found time. He's given you a picture from the observer's perspective. That is the pre and to. Now we wait for the post-election, where he says people should follow the right measures put in place constitutionally in case of any eventualities that they feel they're not satisfied regarding elections. It is the Election Hub, and we are giving you all the updates from the National Tally Center and also all that we receive as they come in. For some of the members of parliament seats that we've not yet gotten the results, as they flow in, of course we shall be giving you that from the Election Hub. I have Felix Nkunda. Felix.
Yes, Robert.
You're ready. Please take us through.
Well, of course, thank you so much. And of course, that wonderful insight by Crispin Kaheru. Thank you so much. Kindly also tell our people out there. And of course, you see, observers have always been not given much emphasis. Many of your colleagues were stopped there. We saw a couple of people from the USA make complaint. But of course, if we come back to how the performance has been up till the last presentation by the Electoral Commission, I'll still take you through what came out of the same. I'll start with Fred Mwesige, who came out with at least 21,841. That is at 0.24%. And just after him, you have Katumba John with 32,692 with 0.36% there. Kalembe Nancy Linda with 33,129. That is a 0.37%. That is then after that, Kabuleta Kiza Joseph with 39,802. That is at 0.44%. Tumukunde Henry Kakurugu there came in with 44,427, which puts him at 0.49%. Norbert Mao at 49,904. He also puts him at 0.55%. Mugisha Muntu Greg at 59,505, which puts him at 0.66%. Amuriat Oboy Patrick, that is with a 296,645, which puts him at 3.29%. And of course, Chagulanyi Sentamu Robert with 3,119,965, which puts him at 34.62%. And there are Yoweri Museveni Tibuhaburwa Kaguta, who has 5,300,831, which puts him at 58.83 there. Now, of course, that is what stands right now, and later on, as the Electoral Commission promised, they will be coming in to give us another update at 11. Now, I have Priscilla on the other set, who will be also taking us through the same, more or less. But let's take a break. When we come back, we are going to be updating you on the other involvements and how the turn-up has been, again, in different regions.
Morning Uganda, January 2021, live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Daddy, surprise! Here is a pizza for you. Happy birthday to you. Daddy, you look not impressed.
My daughter, this is not meaningful to me. Hallelujah Natural Drinks is my ideal gift today.
Hallelujah Day. Hallelujah Ginger Tea Drink and Hallelujah Tamarind Drinks are the most perfect, nutritious and healthy products that help everyone to boost their immune system to get complete relief of most sicknesses like joint pains, cough, diabetes, blood pressure, easy digestion and many more, and certified by UNBS. For orders, find us at Bifro House on Sir Apollo Kagwa Road, opposite MBI. Hallelujah Natural Drinks, perfect for your health. Hallelujah Day.
Good morning, Uganda. Today is a great day to make someone's day. A wonderful day to rewrite the future. Today is a beautiful day to